Hello, my friends. I hope you're having an amazing day. It's Heather, and welcome back to there's a lot of backs in this. Welcome back to the Back to Me podcast. And as you know, Fridays is one of my favorite days, and it's Friday again. And that's because I get to talk to some super awesome people, my celebrities, and you're all celebrities as well, my friend. But today's celebrity is the one and only Laura Barker. Laura Barker Coaching. So easy to remember the name of your company, right?
It is. Hi, Heather.
How are you?
Great. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I have to tell people, we went out for coffee the other day
Mhm.
and in real life,
Mhm.
and we were chatting away. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be awesome to have you on the show and talk even more because we just kept talking and talking and talking.
I know. The
And
afternoon
that
went
happens,
quickly.
right? I know. And I always like to let you introduce yourself because I would probably, not do as good a job as you. So, Laura Barker Coaching, this is my question for you because I know the answer. How did you get into the world of coaching?
Oh, I got into coaching through HR. I had done HR for over 20 years, and I had reached
You
a
were like 5, right, when you started?
I was like 5. Yes, yes. So I'm only 25.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I've done it a long time, and I loved it. I loved it. I worked at big companies, small companies, different industries, because HR doesn't matter where you work. People are people are people.
Right.
But I had reached a point where I was no longer satisfied with HR, and I didn't know what it was. So I tried project management because I love doing projects. I thought that's what it was that was missing, but that was not it.
No, you're like,
um,
wrong
yeah.
move.
But I had to do it every day, and I learned so much through that job. It was employee engagement programs, so it was HR related. It was setting up employee engagement programs at different companies. And what happened was through that process, it was a really tough job. I had a hard time
Wow.
there, and I realized what I really wanted to do was coaching. And when I made that decision, I quit that job. I signed up for coaching. I finished my courses in 4 months because I was so motivated. Took another HR job, telling them, this is my final HR job. I just want to be straight with you. And yeah, I did that for 2 years while I did my certification. And here I am now as a career coach, thrilled, thrilled to be at this stage of my life.
Right. And I like that you actually admitted that I tried this, I didn't like it.
Yeah,
So, because
yeah,
I always tell people, just because you pick something, first it's when people can't decide and like pick something, and if it's wrong,
yeah.
change your mind,
It's
right?
okay.
It's
It's
okay.
okay.
It's,
Yeah, yeah.
you're not gonna get changed to that for the rest of your life.
Mhm, mhm.
And it's actually a good thing when you do something like that because you're like, oh, I actually don't like that. Good to know, right?
Sometimes it helps to clarify what you don't want to figure out what you do want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever way you come at it,
yeah.
right? It's like sometimes you're like, nope, this is it. It's 100% this. And then you're like, oh, no, but I like this part of it, right?
Yes,
Or this piece of it.
yes.
Like there was a reason. Why did you think project management? Like because you like to organize things? I'm just
Mhm.
guessing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had worked on a couple of big projects in some of my companies, and I love the satisfaction of creating, starting from scratch, um, figuring out my key messages. I love teaching. There is a teacher in me. I love training people. I love the follow-up. I loved coaching them after the fact, as they're trying to put it into practice. So I did specifically, I did a compensation project for one of the companies I worked at to teach managers and employees how does compensation work, take the mystery out of it. And I loved it. I loved
I,
it. And so
I
I thought
can't even
that's what
imagine why compensation would be a mystery, but I think that's my accountant brain.
it is. People don't, a lot of people don't understand how do we determine someone's pay? And the focus is just on what the market says, which they find by looking up online. And then they believe it's also about individual, meaning their performance. And those are elements of it. But the other part is the internal structure. the internal compensation structure and how that's created, explaining the logic around it and how these factors interact to get to your pay.
Right.
So it's easy for you because of your background, but a lot of
Right.
people don't get it. If you tell them their compa ratio is 98, it doesn't mean much to most
Right.
people.
You
So
need
that was
like
the
a
concept.
little you need a little translation manual.
I actually
What?
created a brochure, Heather. I
That's
did
awesome.
something short and sweet to help people out as a reminder. These are the key terms. Yeah.
And sometimes when you're knee deep in that stuff all the time, like that's so good because when you're knee deep in that all the time, you forget that it's not like a common knowledge kind of thing.
Yeah.
You get so
Mhm.
entrenched in it. I can remember I had a boyfriend who worked for the government and he would
Mm.
come home and he would talk in acronyms like I knew what he was talking about. I was like,
Mhm.
what?
Yeah.
Because you get
Yeah.
so used to being in that environment that you forget. You got to invite people into to the translations, right?
Yes.
So that's awesome. But it's like you were doing something interesting, but not
Mhm.
entirely engaging, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah. So what I liked in that, I like that element in terms of HR as opposed to running programs, which is more about maintenance, right? And
Right.
so that's how I ended up doing project management because I thought that would stimulate me doing the same process again and again. But when I actually did it day in and day out, I realized I really missed the people part of it. Because when you're implementing projects, you're talking to various customers. Most of the customers are actually in the States, but you're talking to various customers, but you don't develop relationships with them. They're very superficial, focused on just the matter at hand.
Right. Yeah. I had that experience when I worked um, at Nova Scotia Power, actually. And we developed a course to teach managers. It's like,
Mhm.
what do you mean you don't know how to create a budget?
Yeah.
No. And
Mhm.
we went out into the field, but it was like, and that, I'm the same as you. I'm like, I can teach something. So we went out in the field to
Mhm.
teach, but it was all just like, here's your course. And then it was like a drop it and out instead of like an
Mhm.
ongoing helping, nurturing, guiding, which probably would have made it even more effective, if you kept in that contact. But it is true. The people side, that's probably why I left corporate finance. It's like I didn't get to talk to a lot of people, like
Mhm.
help outside of that structure of who do you report to and who reports to you,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what departments do you serve? There's nothing outside of that. And when I worked and I didn't stay in the accounting firm long. When I worked in the accounting firm, the thing I liked best was going out on audits because I was going to go meet
Yeah.
somebody new, right? It's like, yay! Even if they didn't want to see me, they're like, "Oh no, the auditors are here." No, I'm super excited to meet you, right? So good. And I've seen you recently. I've seen your videos up on LinkedIn on what is it? Top? Did you do? What was your article called again? I
Oh,
apologize.
the top 5 wellness trends
Top
in the
5 wellness
workplace
trends.
today.
So
Yeah.
I was super keen to
Mhm.
find out,
Mhm.
straight from the horse's mouth, so they speak. So in the workplace, is this like size dependent or kind of in general?
I think it's in general, and some of it I know, Heather, it's common sense that the things I talk about. Like one example would be, and this is an easy win, is reinvigorating your social committee after 2 years of COVID.
Right. And I don't
So
know that it is common sense
well,
necessarily.
and I think sometimes big companies, I've worked for very big and very small companies. Very big companies have all these structures in place, but not everyone works in really big companies in this day and age. So sometimes when I'm introducing an idea, I can't assume that everybody knows about it.
Right.
Social media is a simple example. So, I think for a lot of companies the last few years, it fell to the wayside. It is not a priority. You're in crisis mode.
They probably couldn't even figure out how to do it,
Yeah. Hmm.
How do you have social events if you're not allowed to gather?
Yeah.
How do you I mean, I
Mhm.
belonged to an art club, and some of those ladies were very inventive on
Mhm.
having Zoom parties. I mean, you got to be inventive in a Zoom party, right? So it's not necessarily a conducive social atmosphere. And if people have been spending their days on Zoom meetings, they might not want to have a social event on Zoom. So I can totally see. And
Mhm.
I guess if a lot of people are working from home, they're just so disconnected from all of their colleagues.
Yeah. It's funny you bring up art, Heather, because we did do that in our social committee at my last job.
Did you?
Yeah, so we hired a company. Usually before COVID, they would come in for the day and like teach a painting. Like they have an artist come in and teach us from beginning to end how to do it. So we actually did it virtually. We did it on
That's so
Zoom.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we picked something we wanted to paint, and the guy did it on Zoom step by step, and we had everyone up on the Zoom screen, and it was actually really, really fun. It was amazing, and so people would show their piece of artwork up on the screen, and then after what we did is I asked people to bring in their artwork, and we put it on a wall, and then people had to guess
No way.
who did which piece of art.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's super inventive. I mean, there's stuff you can do, right?
yeah.
So are you finding I guess people would be super happy to have a social committee back
Mhm,
in, right?
mhm. Yeah.
Are a lot of people back in regular 9 to 5 in the office lately, or are
I
we
think that's
more
very dependent on the industry.
right?
So, I mean, I have some friends at very big companies who've made the companies made the decision. It's up to you when you come in.
Mm,
I've had other companies that say you need to be in the office every day. That would be my husband's work. He's at a bank. They want them in
right.
every day.
It's very old school.
And then the other thing is, my last job is in manufacturing. So while I'm an office worker, the vast majority are hourly. They don't have a choice. They have to be there. That's where
Yeah.
the manufacturing happens. So they were in the plant throughout the pandemic, and they're still there. So there's no change for them.
And there are certain things that cannot be done, like, remotely.
Yeah.
It's just not like I'm still practicing as a massage therapist 2 days a week. I can't do that over Zoom.
Yeah.
I can go like
Mhm.
this onto that won't help you feel
Not
better.
as impactful.
Not as impactful to just wave my hands at a screen. So there is that, and I guess, yeah, it is, um, dependent on how you want your culture to run, I
Oh,
guess.
yes. Yes. And so one thing I hear consistently is um, people feel the need to be in the office to build culture back,
Hmm,
actually. That there's concerns that, if I'm working from home and another company offers to let me work from home for an extra $1,000, who's to say why not go to that other company for an extra thousand? You're not bonded with the
right.
people that you're working with because you're at home most of the time. Whether you're working for company X or Y doesn't really matter as much
Yeah.
when you don't have those bonds with your coworkers.
Yeah, you don't have, any loyalty.
Yeah.
It's like if
Yes,
it's
that's
your
the word.
decision is
Yeah.
only based on dollars,
Yes.
highest bidder, I guess,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
which is kinda sad. I mean, because when I worked in offices, I can remember changing jobs. I used to be called transient. Someone once called me transient 'cause got around. But it was always a hard decision because it's like you really did form connections with
Yeah.
the people you worked with. That's like who you spend the majority of your waking hours with, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And I it's interesting, like, I know of employees right now who were hired during the pandemic, were only working remotely,
Hmm.
have never met anyone that they
Hmm.
work with.
Hmm.
It's like, that would
Hmm.
be so strange
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
try and to understand, because there are subtleties of communication that happen in person. It would be so hard as a new employee to understand what the culture is of the
Hmm.
company if you've never met anyone or been in
Yeah.
a meeting, right?
Yeah. I have
So
friends who've done that, the same boat as you're describing. And
really,
then other situations where the company's trying to be flexible to say you can come in when you want to. So they might go in 2 days a week, but the entire floor has maybe 20 people on it. And so
that's kind of creepy.
it's actually quite depressing. And they end up having to do Zoom calls anyway. So for that, they might as well have been at home.
Right? Yeah. The company's trying, but maybe that's not the solution.
Yeah, I think people are still trying to figure this out. What's the best way to
We
make this?
will for years,
Mhm.
don't you
Yeah.
feel?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
so social committee, I used to be the ambassador of fun in one of my in one of I can't imagine why, Heather. In one of my jobs, I was the ambassador of fun, and it was like the rallying the troops
Mhm.
and coming up with things. So I'm a big fan of social committees,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
because if it's not fun, you're not going to work as much. You're not going to enjoy your time there, right?
Exactly, exactly. And we spend so much time talking about employee engagement. This is such a simple way to bring people together. Um,
Do you
yeah,
remember Scrooge,
yeah.
the Alistair Sims ones, where he's
Mhm,
like, I can't remember his boss's name, would just have a Christmas party every year. And
mhm.
it's like everybody loved him just because he spent a little bit of money on a
Yeah.
Christmas party.
Mhm,
And then Scrooge canceled the whole thing because he was a bummer. But
mhm.
right?
But
The
he
first thing
learned.
we do, yeah, it took him a long time, but you learn. So what's number two? Social committee.
Yeah, so
Check.
a form of social wellness.
Right?
Another would be, so the next one could be we can talk about financial wellness. Now this
It's
is your
on the wellness
area.
wheel.
Yeah. But again, a lot of smaller companies don't have things like pension plans.
Right.
The fast answer is they can't afford them. That's why they don't do it. But at the same time, unless we set the stage for what it should look like, we'll never move ahead in this. So again, I've worked at very big companies that have multiple pension plans. Most of them are now called defined contribution, DC plans, but they even had these old DB plans, which are the Cadillac of pension.
I
Do
had
you have
one.
one? Oh, Heather.
Back in the day, I had one and I
Yeah,
had
that's the
matching.
Cadillac of pension plans.
It
Yeah,
is. If you can
yeah.
get it.
If you can get it. And most, I would say very few companies now will do a DB plan. But again, for financial wellness, doing some stuff around retirement to help your employees down the road, creating an RSP, or in the States, they call them 401ks, where ideally there's the company matches what the employee puts in.
Right. And it's super important to think about it before you have to think about it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can remember when I was in my 20s, getting my first little jobs, that
Mm.
wasn't even a conversation. Actually, sadly, maybe not sadly, like at the time, the way the company were helped us was, you remember the bonds, you would like the bond
Mhm.
contributions where you would buy a Canada
Mhm.
savings bond
Yep.
with
Yeah.
it
I
taken
remember
off of
doing
your
those where I worked
payroll.
in comp. Yeah.
Do they even still do that anymore?
They do, but only in a big company.
Right?
Yeah.
But what's interesting was, instead of someone's, and this was so bad, like I was an accountant, I should have known better, like thought further ahead, but I was still fresh. It's like, oh, that's just so at the end of the year I can cash it in and I'll have some extra money to spend. No, it's for savings, you
Yeah.
crazy girl.
Yes.
Um, but it is true. If you're new to working, or you know where, no matter where you are in the working world life
Mhm.
span, if you haven't actually sat and thought about it, then you could run into some challenges. And I mean, I think a company, if you, and it is a retention, tell
Yeah,
you, I
totally.
was, it
Yes.
was, it was hard to leave my DB plan
Mhm,
with my
mhm,
matching,
mhm.
because that was like but I have this really good pension. Right?
That's why they do it. They want it
That's
to be
why they do
hard,
it.
right?
But even just knowing, like, the health of your employees, the financial health of your employees is one aspect of their health. And if they can feel confident
Mhm.
as they get older and know that they understand what they're going to need,
Mhm.
even if it's not a pension plan, something in place.
Yeah.
Like that can make a big difference to people, right?
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, I know that companies want employee retention and they want people working hard. But if you think of it as how do I create the happiest, healthiest
Mhm.
workforce,
That's it. So
right?
financial, when we talk about wellness, we have to look at all these aspects of what it means to be human, and financial is one of them. And I think
100%.
as an employer, if I can help people, because the thing with especially retirement is it's cumulative, right? The earlier you can get in there, the more you have time for it to increase. So,
Everyone go read The Wealthy Barber,
oh, yes, yes,
right?
yeah.
I know that's kind of an old,
Mhm,
old book. They might have
mhm,
redone a new edition, but you get the idea
yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
And how big does a company need to be to have a pension plan? I mean, uh, I guess if the employee is contributing, I guess it's the employer portion that but you
Mhm.
can work that into the compensation
You
somehow,
can.
right?
That would be part of your total compensation package, and
Yeah,
there's many different ways you can figure it out, where you have company matches up to a certain percentage, between 1 and 5% up to YMPE, which is your yearly maximum pensionable earnings,
right.
and that changes on a yearly basis. That's government driven.
Yeah,
And then what often companies will do is they'll just stop at that point. They'll do the matching up until that point, and then it's the employee
right.
contributing at that point. Yeah.
That makes sense. And
And then
the
what you talked about earlier, Heather, was about vesting. Like, they want you to stay for a certain amount of time so you can keep the company portion that they put in. Because if you leave before you're vested, you lose what the company put in.
golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
But you're not really shackled. You can just decide, right?
Yeah. And remember the whole point of this. So, from the employer's perspective, they're doing this as a retention tool. From the employee's perspective, that's free money from your employer.
It is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have emotional is our social committee, financial.
Yeah, no, the social is the
Oh,
social
social is
wellness.
social, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
I call
financial
that
and then,
in my wellness circle, that's
oh, oh,
relationships.
we all have, yes,
We're the same but different, right?
yes. So, we can talk about some of the other things that I think are going on is in terms of mental or emotional is anxiety, which is through the roof
Right.
coming out of the pandemic. I did a training session last month, and the topic was networking, and talking about elevator pitches. But it's interesting the level of anxiety I'm hearing from people about re-engaging. Um, we talked already about meeting people online, or these constant Zoom meetings. It's not the same as
No.
meeting in real life. It's not. And so people are nervous about, how do I engage? How do I keep a conversation going? Like, these are real concerns.
It is, and it's not even like some of it's like some anxiety that I've seen is being in the presence of people who are not masked. I mean,
Yes. Hmm.
it's still present in the populace. If you haven't had it yet, you're still trying to avoid it. And some people just aren't feeling ready to be back with people in real life because there's a certain fear level and concern, which granted, I mean, we've kind of we've ripped off the band-aids and said, everybody go out and play.
Hmm.
It's like, wait,
Hmm.
but be careful while you're out there. Wait, what does that mean?
I
You
know.
know?
I
So some
know.
people have been separated for so long. It's, how do you reintroduce that
Hmm. Hmm.
beyond just being able to carry on a conversation?
Hmm.
Um, but there is that. And then something else came into my head, which left again immediately. So we can
No,
just
it'll come
carry
to
on.
you.
It'll
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
I was
Hmm.
thinking about masking and COVIDs
Hmm.
and yeah, it's there. So, oh, I remember. So this is interesting because I had a conversation about people haven't forgotten how to be in a social situation with other human beings. And I was at a concert, and it was a, Ludovico. Do you know Ludovico?
feel like I put that name. Yes.
classical
Yeah.
pianists,
Yeah.
spectacular show.
Mhm.
Lady 2 rows behind me eating popcorn.
Oh.
I was just thinking, you know how much noise it makes to crinkle a
Mm.
bag and eat popcorn in this large theater with all these people listening to one man on a piano? She was clueless. I looked over at her. She was clueless.
Mm.
And people can't keep their hands off their phones. Like
Oh.
I'm
Mhm.
thinking you have forgotten how to be. Maybe they've always been that way, and I'm just more prone to noticing it now. I don't know. Is it
Mhm.
me? Is it them? Do you know?
Well,
I
I think when you and I met for coffee that day, I was talking about a book, a terrific book I just read called Stolen Focus. A guy named Johan Hari. And the whole book is about why we can't pay attention and how to think deeply again.
I remember you talking about
Yeah.
that, and I
Yeah.
forgot
Yeah.
immediately.
No,
Apparently,
no, I know. It's such a good read. And so he says too much of our discussion about our loss of focus is about what the individual needs to do. Turn off notifications, just have willpower and not check their phones. And his argument is way bigger than this. It is systemic. This push for us to be distracted, and then he, in the latter half of the book, he talks about ways that we can start to address it societally.
wow.
Um, it's a really good read. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so. I read the book 24/6.
Yes, I remember you mentioned
Right,
this.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
this must have been our
Yeah.
mid-conversation
Yeah.
about, unplugging yourself. I mean, that's still an individual solution,
Hmm.
I'm going to
Hmm.
unplug myself for 24 hours.
Hmm.
But it is like trying to stop a speeding train.
Yeah. Yeah.
This new social media all the time. Make sure you're on this, make sure you're on this, make sure you're checking this, make sure you're checking this. And interesting, I found it really interesting when the European countries started to put in the rules around you're not allowed
Mm.
to contact your employees during these hours. And I don't see us doing that really. Did you hear any rumblings for that?
No, we passed it in Ontario last month.
Wow, look at us.
Yeah. So they did pass that in Ontario last month. And so right now, and I'm no longer working in HR, but I've heard this from other HR people. They're drafting their policies around what
Oh,
that's going to
okay.
look like. So, so
You
we are
need an
moving.
HR department to do that though, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're moving. We're moving in that direction. Um, so those are what the rules are. But what has to happen is the cultural shift, really, about I say this not cynically, I say this based on years of HR experience, is that you can write a policy, but what actually people do day to day isn't necessarily exactly what you have written in your policy.
No way, really? I
Yeah,
could tell you that from an accounting perspective as well.
there you go. So, you create these macro rules, but anyway, so this is the start, legislating it, and then the next step is I hope, a slow shift in culture to respecting people's time when they're not at work.
Right.
Hmm.
And maybe we could turn down the dial on
Yeah.
the hustle culture,
Hmm.
and on driving forward, which can create an anxiety all by itself.
Oh,
That I'm
completely.
not getting
Yeah.
forward fast enough. I'm not doing this fast enough. I don't need sleep. I
So
can
actually, one of the things he recommends, and it's straightforward stuff, he says, get enough sleep, exercise, eat nutritious food to have a healthy brain. He talks about the environmental toxins that we have. And I'm not trying to get off track, but just when he's talking about this, you see that it is systemic. There's so much more that needs to happen. Switching. So you're kind of hinting at it, which is this concept of we believe that we can multitask. We actually cannot. But we seem to believe we can multitask. And really what's happening is we're switching from one thing to the next. And he says in the book that on average, it takes 23 minutes to get back on track when you
remember this.
switch.
I remember you saying I remember us talking about that
Yeah.
because I had this sudden, like, light bulb moment where I'm like, "No wonder it takes me 20 minutes to actually start doing something because my brain is doing something else, and I
Yes.
haven't actually
Yeah.
switched off."
Yeah.
I used to claim that I was the queen of multitasking,
Ah, mhm,
but
mhm,
yeah, no, you can't.
mhm. Apparently, evolutionarily, we can only focus on one, potentially a second thing. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then, focus, like, I don't think focus is focus. Like, when you think about a camera, focus is on one thing.
Mhm,
So you can't focus on 2 things
mhm,
because you'll have
mhm,
double vision.
mhm.
And
Yeah, I
I
love
can
that.
tell you
Mhm,
firsthand, you can't really do anything with double vision. Like,
mhm.
I had to walk when I was going to the emergency room with my double vision because of my stroke. I had to walk with one eye covered up because I was gonna trip over something because
Oh,
I
yeah.
couldn't see properly. Yeah, you can't see properly with double vision, my friends.
Mhm,
Lived it. And we're not off track, by the way. Our
mhm.
track leads everywhere. It's all wellness all the time in the
Yeah.
land of Heather.
Well, I think the thing that I've come back to is he says at the beginning, he's talking about the consequences of our inability to focus, our lack of attention. And he says, when attention breaks down, problem solving breaks down.
True.
And we are a world where there's a lot of stuff that we need to focus on right now. The environment is a
And
real,
it's yeah.
I've
We
got,
need to focus not on TikTok.
yeah, yeah. And it's like these things that distract us. They're preventing us from dealing with what the big things that we as a group, actually, not as individuals, but a group, we need to get together to start dealing with.
And it's almost like, an avoidance, when you don't wanna deal with something, like, for people who don't like conflict,
Mhm,
they'll do anything else. For
mhm,
people who like conflict is just the one that I think of the
mhm,
most. It's like you'll do almost anything to avoid that conversation,
mhm,
and we fall into other addictive habits to avoid the thing that we
mhm.
really need to just stand up to and
Correct.
face, right?
Mhm,
And not everybody agrees on the best way to do it. So
mhm,
that's okay
mhm.
because probably everybody's a little bit right and everybody's a little bit wrong. Right?
We've gotta find somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Somewhere in the middle, I remember my negotiation class in university, somewhere in the middle is the truth, ish.
Yes.
Everything is
Mhm.
ish. Somewhere in the middle is where we can meet to just move forward.
Mhm.
So, my God, the world, if we could solve all the world's problems on this podcast, I would have achieved my goals. Right? And so I don't want to stop you. So what's number 4? Did
Well,
did we
another
do 3?
thing,
We've done
yeah,
3,
we
right?
did 3 of them.
Okay.
Another one would be, burnout, which I'm seeing a
Been
lot
there.
of. Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of burnout, uh, at all levels. So, of course, managers have had stuff put on them that is crazy, that would not have been expected a few years ago, and they've had to cope, with managing their employees during a difficult time, as well as trying to manage their own families and their own workloads. And we have employees who are feeling overwhelmed, for many reasons, because of the pandemic, because of a lack of perceived direction on what's going on with the company and their jobs. I just, there's a lot of burnout.
Well, and you can see it even if you aren't in a company. Like, I was losing my mind because of just lack of direction from, like, what are we supposed to do? Do
Yep.
we mask? Do we not mask? Do we test? Do we not test? Am I allowed to work? Am I not allowed to work? How close can I stand? How far away
Mhm,
do I have to be?
mhm,
Can I be in a room with 2 people? No, only 1 person. Like, it was just, and I understand, like, intellectually, I
mhm,
understand that it was as information comes in, the recommendations change, trying to maintain attention on the information that is scientifically validated,
mhm.
and but it kept changing, and then how do you cope with that? Communicate out what you understand even though you don't really understand. Like, think of
Mhm.
those poor managers. They didn't understand, and they're trying
Yeah.
to help their employees understand.
Mhm,
So I totally get them. Even though I only work for myself,
mhm.
I would come home at the end of the day going, "I don't know what to do."
You
It's like,
know, it's Heather, I had to do this in my last job because I told you this one was manufacturing.
right.
And the rules kept changing, like you said. So I would put on the door, 4 people can be in this room. We figured out how to stagger meals, etc. And then you add to that a lot of our employees were immigrants
Oh,
and
right.
English was not their language.
Oh my God, so hard,
So
right?
then you're adding in trying to get key messages to people who speak English well enough to understand what I'm trying to communicate to pass and hope that they can pass accurately the latest information on to those people who speak the same language.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
And
Yeah.
it is
Mhm.
interesting that you mentioned that. I remember it was at the end of 2020, a client who I hadn't seen in months came to see me, and because she was new to Canada, and her English wasn't is okay,
Mhm.
but she thought she wasn't allowed to leave her house. She hadn't left her house in 5 months.
Oh.
Thinking, "You're allowed to go for a walk." She said, "I thought I wasn't allowed out." So
Oh.
I was like, "No wonder you're in pain and confused and, like, a little stressed out." But it's just like, "Oh my goodness," like, lost in translation
Mhm.
somewhere, like, and um, so much, almost anger around, so much bubbled over in the
Mhm.
last couple of years about, uh temper tantrums over this and that. I'm like, "Can't we just all, like, figure out how to help help each other a little bit?"
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
And some of us are upset, so let's figure out how we can help that person, and some of us are don't wanna be near people. How can we help those people?
Mhm.
And burnout is I think I think people toss around burnout sometimes, but it's such a real thing, and when you
Mhm.
get it, it is hard to recover from,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yeah.
I experienced that at the end of a job that I thankfully left, and it took me a long, long time to rev myself back up again because it was
Mm.
just so draining.
Yes. Yes. And that's the right word. It is draining. Yeah. When you're burnt out.
There
And I
was
think there's
nothing
a
left.
lot of people who are like that now. And so I think that's part of why we're seeing all this road rage.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
oh my goodness, the people
Shopping rage.
no, just who get so worked up. It's yeah.
There's
Yeah.
bicyclist rage, there's pedestrian
Yeah.
rage, there's road rage, there's debit line rage, like,
Mhm.
it's like,
Mhm. Yeah, it's true.
um, friends, take a moment and take a breath before
Yeah.
before you
Mhm.
kick off. But I know it's like some people are just it's like it's here and
Mhm.
one little thing will send it over. But
Mhm.
I guess what can companies do?
I think in something like burnout, it's more about educating people about what it is.
Hmm,
What does it look like? Um, some people, we cannot assume that everyone understands how burnout manifests. And it may look different on you than it does on me. And
right.
so, what can I do as an HR professional? What I can do is help people understand do some training around that. And ultimately, though, it comes down to asking people to listen. It's that simple. Half the time, you just have an ear for someone to, if they can pour out some of their concerns, people feel better. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to
No,
fix them. Just listen. That's it.
it's interesting. I have an agreement with my husband that I will start a conversation with, "This is not a problem I want you to fix."
Ah. Mhm.
But I have to
Mhm.
tell him that because and this is gonna be totally, pigeonholing, but guys like to fix things.
Oh, my husband does the same thing.
Total
Yeah.
fixer, but
Mhm.
he understands if I say, "No, no
Mhm.
fixing, just listening,"
Yeah.
then he'll restrain his need to fix. And
Yeah.
when I get to the end, sometimes I'll say, "Do you have a thought?" But sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just needed to, like, unload whatever
Mhm.
was going on,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Don't fix, just listen.
Mhm. Mhm.
And sometimes even me, so as a, what do I call myself? helper. I'm a
Mhm.
helper. By
Mhm.
nature, I'm a helper. When people come and have a problem, I restrain myself.
Mhm.
Like it's a practice I have to restrain myself from helping.
Mhm.
Then I'll ask them if they want any help. But
Mhm.
a lot of times they don't. And I guess that's the skill for managers to kind of
Mhm.
start working on.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
probably need it themselves as well,
They
right?
need it too. They need some care as well, because I think in particular, managers as a group have felt very pressed um, in the last couple of years.
Between the upper management
Mhm.
and their staff,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
um yeah, I remember when this was not related at all to stress or this kind of thing that we're talking about, but when I was the bottleneck between corporate head office and the groups below me. Everything
Mm.
came through me, and it was like, Heather's getting squished in the middle because, like, "We want this, we don't want
Yeah.
that." I'm
Mhm.
just the one little person in the center. So,
Yep.
like
Yep. Mhm.
but luckily I had really good bosses who I could just go, "Blah," and
Mhm. And that's what
like
makes the difference. See? That's what makes the difference.
yeah,
Someone you could vent to or talk to
yeah.
about what's going on. And
Well,
so
it
in
was
terms of yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, oh, yeah, you go first.
No, I was just gonna say, just in terms of addressing burnout, there's no one size fits all. There isn't. So what can I say so people don't get overwhelmed by this whole concept of burnout and how to handle it, is I
Right.
can say, practice listening.
That's a key skill for so many things. You could solve so many problems
Yeah.
if
Mhm.
we could listen on a level where you're, uh, like, deep listening,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Not forming the answer while they're still talking.
Yes, because that's not actually listening.
No.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
lots of people who think they listen. So
Yeah, it's true.
right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
then 5, are we at 5?
Yeah, so 5 is also an easy one because it's physical, wellness, and that is recommending, companies give out discounted fitness memberships.
Brilliant,
Yeah. So
and
either
it's
they
not that
pay
expensive.
it's not, and, either the company ideally pays for the full amount, even if it's half the amount. Um, Having the company commit to your physical wellness is huge, because when I feel physically well, it really does help me mentally as well. And I think the next level up, I would say, for this is because I've done this where offered it at these big box exercise places. But what was also really cool is, you decide on a flat amount per month per year and letting the employee decide. I want to spend it on yoga, dancing, karate. Let them decide how they want to
Right.
spend their fitness dollars.
Yeah, that's I wish they had had that. Interestingly, when I worked one of the places that I worked had a gym, like, we were a big enough
Mm.
company that it had a gym. Nobody used it. So I think the other thing that has to come well, it was funny because I would walk around at lunchtime
Mhm.
gathering up all my little
Mhm.
ducklings, "Come on, we're gonna go take step class." Remember step
Oh,
class?
I love step classes.
I was a hopper, I was a jumper. Woohoo! But, creating space, like, it's fine to give someone the financial resources to access physical wellness, but you need them to have the time as well,
Mhm,
right? So
mhm,
somehow building that even if you could build this into the day, like, oh, siestas. Do you remember the European I always fantasized about being in one of those countries that had afternoon
mhm.
siestas
Yeah.
because you feel better after a
Mhm,
siesta. So
mhm,
building into your corporate structure, this is when you go and do something good for you physically,
mhm.
right?
I like that. I like that. Yeah.
And I know that not all jobs are like clock in, clock out, but like when I gathered up all my friends to take them down to aerobics class, we knew that we were going to take a longer lunch
Mhm,
than was official. But our
mhm.
bosses never said a word because we worked so much better after lunch than we
Yeah.
did before lunch
Mhm.
because
They're
we
more
were like
productive.
jacked up on step class,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm,
So
mhm,
finding a way to let because when I worked in corporate after the place with the gym,
mhm.
I often ate lunch at my desk, and I was just, like,
Oh,
getting
yeah, I
treadmill,
did
and
too.
it's just, like,
Mhm,
dragging yourself down. So, coming from the top, that culture of it's okay to stop working, go and do something,
Hmm.
wellness, and then come back when you're done.
Yeah.
Because some companies, I think, pay lip service to the here's your fitness dollars,
Hmm.
and they think
Yeah,
that they've solved a problem, but it's more than just throwing the dollars at it.
it is. You're back to culture. We're back to
Right.
culture.
Back to
Um,
culture.
and when the person at the top supports it, it makes it much easier for everyone else to do it. Um, I'm thinking about the Finnish school model, which you've probably heard. It's the best school considered, maybe the best schooling system in the world, or one of the best. And what they do is the kids have 45 minutes where they're taught, and then it's 15 minutes of play. 45 minutes and then 15 minutes of play. And that's the whole day. Um, I know, and they don't get much homework. They don't start school till they're 7 years old, and yet their educational outcomes are amazing, amazing. And there's something to this. That's why I'm bringing it up. There's something
Well,
to this.
even as a grown-up, that would be amazing,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Pomodoro method. The Pomodoro method uses that a little bit, right?
I don't know it. Tell me I don't
Oh,
know the Pomodoro
so
method.
the Pomodoro method is supposed to help you focus on tasks. So you use a
Okay.
timer. I'm gonna get the
Mhm.
times wrong because, I haven't looked it up recently, but it's like you work for 15 minutes and then you take a 2-minute break, work
Mm.
for 15 minutes, and you work for a certain number of segments, but it's work, break, work, break, work, break. Then at the end of one segment, one grouping, you have a long break. And during those breaks, you're not allowed to look at your phone, check your emails.
Huh.
It's supposed to be an actual like disconnect, go to the bathroom, go to the water cooler, go stand outside. And then the longer break is your like complete, just like
Hmm.
reset. And they called it Pomodoro because the person who invented it had an egg timer that looked like a tomato.
Okay. I was
So
wondering about that. I'm like, there's going to be tomato
you're
in
like,
here
there's
somewhere.
a tomato. It's because their timer looked like a tomato and they're the ones who came up with it. But that's brilliant because I remember when I was doing, when you start learning, taking courses on how to provide courses to adults, it's like they need to have breaks.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
one of the instructors that I was taking a class with, he called it dumping the cup. You can fill the cup up. If you don't let it dump out, it's just going to overflow and they're going to stop listening.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
probably imagining like 45-minute block and then go out and play so you can actually your brain has time to
Mhm.
assimilate, sort, sift. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting because I teach a yoga tai chi fusion class, 45 minutes.
Oh.
And I can see people that's
Mhm.
all they can do.
Mhm.
Their brain, because it is like tai chi does have a mental aspect to it,
Mhm.
which is why they say it's good for your brain, Alzheimer's and all those
Yes.
things. It's like at 45 minutes, you can see they can't
Mhm.
really keep it together.
Yep.
So like
Energy's flagging.
that's enough. The
Mhm.
end.
Yeah.
And then come back later when you're recharged.
Well, and so as we're talking about this, one thing you realize is it's the physical wellness informs the mental wellness.
Yeah.
Having that break and you come back to work and you're energized again, you can do more.
So then that circles back around to number 1.
Yeah.
Almost, right? It's
Mhm.
like, "I'm anxious." Was number 1 anxiety? I can't remember.
Number one was the social
Social.
committee, but we talked about anxiety. Again, physical exercise is great for anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The naturopath that I talked to recently said, "You will see" as I don't know if you've tried this. For a week, go outside for, like, 5-10 minutes when the sun is rising.
Oh,
I'm like, "Oh," I was like,
that's early right
"Ee."
now because we're
I checked,
midsummer.
it's like 5:45 or something like
Mhm.
that. It's gonna be it'll shift as, we get closer to fall, but
Yeah.
she said, there's something to do with the sunrise and the way the light hits your eyes and, it shifts your brain chemistry for the rest of the day. It sets you up for the rest of the day. So she challenged me to
Hmm.
go out every morning. And that's when the sun is rising, because that's not when I get up. I'm not a morning person,
You're a
but
night owl?
not even. I'm
Yeah.
just not a I'm a sleeper.
Yeah.
Actually, not even a sleeper because I don't sleep that well. I'm a laying downer in bedder. I love reclining and relaxing, which people who see me teach classes, teach fitness classes or teach kayaking, they're like, "No, she never sleeps." No, I love lying
Mhm.
around. That's why I have the energy for the other things.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
so good. So there are like not they don't have to be huge overwhelming things, thinking of
Mhm.
overwhelm for a company to help
Mhm.
their employees. And not even just because of COVID, right? But
Yeah.
just in general.
Mhm.
Think of when I was a manager, I thought of all the places that I liked working and all the places that I didn't like working.
Mhm.
Why didn't I like working there? And I would try really hard not to make my employees have that kind of experience.
Ah.
Really,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So if you've made
Yeah.
it to management, even maybe not as a company owner would have had experience. Like if you get up to a certain level, you've had some experiences. And what experience are you creating for the people that are around you, right?
Mhm. Yes.
So
Yes. And, part of that comes with time and developing more self-awareness, what I liked, what I didn't like. And the other thing that's happening is demographics in the workplace are shifting.
mhm,
So as now the millennials are firmly ensconced, but now we have the Gen Zs coming up. And both of these generations, particularly the younger one, the Gen Zs, um, it's a very anxious generation. Macro level, they're finding overall this is an anxious generation.
wow,
So as an employer, as I'm looking to build HR programs and attract the best candidates, I need to start looking at what is going to make me competitive. And talking about all these wellness things that we're doing, that's the stuff that will differentiate you when someone is choosing between company X and Y, and you offer all these things. It's going to make someone want to be at your company.
right. And hopefully they have a good time while they're there, right?
Yeah, well, completely. And that you can only control so much, right?
Totally,
Whether they have a good time or not depends so much because the number one reason people quit, it's not money, it's relationship with the supervisor.
right?
So,
Been
not to
there.
put pressure on supervisors, but it is the number one reason.
You
So,
can't be friends with everybody, but
mhm,
you can be respectful and supportive,
yeah,
right?
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So much to think about. And I'm totally going to check out that book, Stolen, because now I've written it down on a piece of paper in front of me
Yeah.
instead of just trying to hold it in my brain. Johann Hari, you said, right?
hmm hmm
Okay, Stolen Focus. You guys, you should check out that book. Wow, that's a lot.
That was
So
fun.
good. So
That was
good.
fun.
Do you have any I always let people have the last word if you have any final wisdom that we didn't unveil.
Oh. No, I really think we've done a good job covering all the various ways to look at wellness. So, what I hope for someone listening as they leave is to consider wellness from all these perspectives: social, financial, mental, emotional, physical.
Right. So true. Yeah. And because we are a whole being, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think in the workplace, what people are comfortable talking about is the physical wellness. It's that, and maybe the social. That's about it. Um, but at this point, we need to move past that.
Yeah. We need to address all of them. Otherwise, we'll just keep repeating the
Yes,
same things,
exactly,
right?
exactly. Yep.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Laura, for coming and hanging out with me.
Thanks, Heather. That was
We
great.
will we'll get together again real soon.
Yes,
Okay.
I'd like to.
Awesome. So my friends, if you're looking for Laura, somewhere in the notes, I'm not sure which direction it's going to be. Somewhere in the notes, you're going to find everything you need to connect and have conversation. And if I can remember, I'll stick in the name of the book too, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
All
sure.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay safe and well out there, my friends.
All right.